I'm pleased to welcome you to today's conversation about the very unique collaboration between Serendipity Arts Foundation and the Royal College of Art, London, the Senior Artist Residency program, which saw Sukanya Ghosh as the first resident under the program in 2024. In conversation today, we have with us Sir Peter Basilchat, Michael Leonard, Chantal Faust, and Ken Neal, as well as Sukanya Ghosh. Sir Peter Basilchat has been co-chair of the UK's Creative Industries Council since 2021. He also chairs the Royal College of Art and previously chaired Arts Council England and the broadcaster ITV. He also sits on the board of the UK's Department of Education. Michael Leonard, RCA's Head of Partnerships, manages academic and international relations, including relations with Serendipity Arts Foundation. He has worked with organizations like the London Business School, the World Economic Forum, including the Indian Museum Leadership Training Program with former Minister of Culture Jawahar Sircar. He recently co-edited the book, The Persistence of Taste, Art, Museums and Everyday Life After Bordeaux. Professor Chantal Faust is the current Dean of the RCA School of Arts and Humanities at RCA. Prior to that, she was the head of the MA in Contemporary Art Practice, which was the main program that hosted Sukanya Ghosh at the RCA. Chantal is an artist and writer whose photographic, painting, video, installation works have been exhibited globally. Professor Ken Neal is the Pro Vice Chancellor academic at the Royal College of Art, responsible for RCA's 4 schools, its academic program portfolio and global engagement. He is also a Fellow of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of the Arts, a Fellow of the Higher Education Academy, and holds various roles in the Board of Trustees of Arts Organization. Sukanya Ghosh was the first resident under this program. Her artistic practice spans painting, photography, animation, and the moving image. I will now hand over to Michael to take the panel ahead.
And I thank you very much. Should we switch all of them on? No. Okay. When we speak, okay. Is that okay?
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Good. We should have done the sound check probably before we started for next year. Lessons learned. So, thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Thank you very much for coming to this event in light of the richness of what goes on everywhere here. We feel very honored that you have chosen this room, this air-conditioned environment to be with us and not enjoy art and design work everywhere else where life is bustling. We are here to celebrate Sukanya's work, which has been empowered and made even hopefully stronger through the residency scheme that Mr. Sunil Munjal has created in partnership with the Royal College of Art. Let me give a little bit of a background story on this. The Royal College of Art has a long relationship with Mr. Munjal over the past 15 years. We have always had small cooperations and partnerships. When the Serendipity Arts Foundation was set up, Mr. Munjal was generous enough to reach out to us again and suggested cooperation. We did the Confluence Ideathon, which is an entrepreneurship and incubation program in 2019, already on the verge of the COVID pandemic, which made this actually a very interesting hybrid and digital environment, very astute, actually, for Indian and British cooperation. And then 2 years ago, Humidity was very kindly reaching out to us and said, why don't we do a residency scheme? So obviously we know that the Serendipity Foundation has a fantastic residency scheme already for Indian artists, immensely successful, and we can see all the residents showcasing the work here. The residency that was proposed to the Royal College of Art was very distinct. It was a Senior Artist in Residence program. It was about really giving an opportunity for an Indian artist to come to London, come to the Royal College of Art, use its estates, its workshops, its facilities, and its immensely creative interdisciplinary environment to fuel a completely new and further continuing approach to artistic practice. I think we need to tell a little bit about the Royal College of Art in the most modest possible way, because we are in awe about what we see here. Can I ask you to tell a little bit about the history and what the RCA is all about? I think soundcheck will be the running joke.
How's that? There we are.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everybody. So I'm Ken, as mentioned, Pro Vice Chancellor Academic. And I think it falls to me to just say a little bit about the RCA. Some of you may know it inside out. But for those of you who don't, just one or two points to just explain who we are, what we do, and what we are interested in. So we are the world's only entirely postgraduate university for disciplines of art, design, and architecture. Roughly 2,700 students, so small in terms of the student role. We structure ourselves around 4 schools: School of Communication, School of Architecture, School of Design, and the School of Arts and Humanities. We have a PhD program also, so it's a complement of top postgraduate programs and postgraduate study by research. We are research intensive, so all of our programs are driven by research, and I think, as Michael hinted, our research is multidisciplinary. So we have researchers, faculty working in fine art disciplines, and on the other side of the spectrum, if you like, we have faculty working in the areas of robotics, computer science, intelligent mobility, automotive design, and so forth, and everything in between. So we pride ourselves on being multidisciplinary, and we pride ourselves in the way that we work in interdisciplinary fashion. We're doing something right. We have been at the top of the QS rankings, if I can say that with a degree of humility, for the last decade. And it's worth mentioning that because that ranking comes from 2 things in particular. It comes from the talent and ability of all of our graduates going into the workplace across a wide range of disciplines and having impact. So we benefit from the talent of our graduating students every year. And the second thing that drives that ranking is the reputation of our academic faculty, as scholars, as writers, as artists, and so forth. So those 2 things drive the rankings. And whenever we mention the rankings, we mention those 2 things, and we say thank you, because these are people things. These are our students, and these are our staff. So behind that ranking, we have people, and we like to stress that. One of the things that we are very keen on exploring and developing in the RCA is our international reach and our international complexion. And studying in London with us, really at any point of time, we have north of 80 different nationalities from all over the world. And we have a wide range of nationalities on faculty. This is essential to the success, to the DNA, to the culture of the Royal College of Art in London, and it's something that we are very proud of and want to nurse into the future. The Serendipity relationship is part of that. We're very proud of it. As Michael has mentioned, it's long running, and we're delighted to have Sukanya as the first output from the Senior Artist in Residence. We look forward very much to further contact and collaboration with Mr. Munjal and the Serendipity Foundation and the Arts Festival in particular. It's a wonderful festival, as you all know. It's great to be here in person to experience it, and we look forward to many return visits. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Ken. So, as you said, great humility is attached to being supposedly world's #1 ranked university, but we are dealing with Serendipity as, I think, the world's leading art festival in terms of richness, in terms of ideas, and in terms of how things are being enabled for artists. The Senior Artist in Residence program that Chantal will go into greater detail was really about giving a senior artist who is in an advanced career, who has artistic practice already shaped and formed, given an opportunity to come to London and study with us. It was an inaugural, experimental program. It has not been done before. We did our own research internally at the RCA, and we admit with mild shame that it is also the first time in our nearly 200 years of history that an Indian artist was given a residency in London. We have, of course, many students from India. We are very proud of that. We have an Indian alumni community. But that residency scheme was really a pioneering act, and we are absolutely thrilled that Sukanya was the one to pioneer this program. The program was really about giving an artist the opportunity to come to London for 3 months, to be given a studio space, to have access to all our workshops, all our facilities, which we are very proud to say are quite good, access to faculty from all programs, and then to create art as that person, as a resident wishes. So there are no programmatic brackets, no thematic guidelines. You have the tools, create what you wish. Because we know that the disciplinary conceptions of art in India are different to the Western, very more rigid, works-oriented approaches, are not identical, they don't match. I learned that when I worked here in the museum sector, that the Western concept of a museum is not really applicable here in India. So the program that we chose from the get-go to host Sukanya was not a traditional discipline like painting, photography, or print. It was contemporary art practice, which at that time was led by Chantal Faust as head of program. And I think you did an absolutely wonderful job hosting Sukanya for 3 months. Can you explain a little bit more about your program and go into a bit of detail how Sukanya's practice meshed?
Yes, yes, yes.
Some like it.
Hello, no.
Yes,
Huh?
if you hold it close.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. I'm very, very pleased to be here to celebrate Sukanya, wonderfulness, and the outcome of her residency and the brilliant exhibition that is part of this festival. So last year I was the head of the Contemporary Art Practice Program, and we were delighted to welcome Sukanya into the artist studios. As Michael says, contemporary art practice is a little bit of an anomaly within the fine art suite of programs within the School of Arts and Humanities at the RCA. So it sits alongside the more traditional medium-specific programs. And I think that that's just a quite important thing to identify. It's not like it's not what we see in every kind of contemporary art exhibition at the moment, but there is something particular, I think, that attracts students to the CAP program in that they don't want to be defined by potentially the weight and the histories and trajectory of a particular medium. So we see artists who are working in very multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary ways, artists who consistently change and mold their forms of expression. And I think that, I'm speaking about CAP artists, but I could equally potentially be speaking about Sukanya in that context. So it was a really perfect opportunity to be able to welcome her. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about the way that the studio residency unfolded following Sukanya's presentation. But I did just want to give a little shout out to Shruti, who is a graduate of the Contemporary Art Practice Program and was part of the cohort that Sukanya joined. So it's really special to have you here today as well. Thank you for being here, Shruti.
Sukanya, I think this is the moment where we get confronted with your experience at the RCA. And we would love to invite you to talk about your time with us. I think you have a wonderful presentation prepared with some photos,
Oh, good.
Yes, I do.
which we shall turn our backs around to see that.
I think I'm going to stand because I'm too
Yes.
short. This is a long. It's got a green light. Hello. Yeah. Thank you everyone for all very many kind words, and I was absolutely thrilled to be part of this residency. And I have a few pictures which I'll just take you through, sort of a little bit of a chronology of what I did when I went there. Before I begin, just to tell you a little bit about myself. My practice is it includes photography, moving image. I've been working with family archives, a lot with found images over time, and I will just show you how that dovetailed into the residency that I did. So can we have the first slide? So here I am being welcomed to the CAP studio, where I got a little present of many things, and I got my pass, which gave me access to all the campuses in Battersea and Kensington, and I was very happy to get that, and I had my little desk and my little welcome gift from the sweet cohort that was there. Next slide. This is the Dyson building in Battersea where I was housed most of the time. We had kind of thought of dividing the 3 months up into 2 sections where I would spend the greater part of time at the Contemporary Art Practice Studio and then move to curating for contemporary art with Victoria Walsh in Kensington. We changed that a little bit, but that was the plan. And in the Battersea campus, we were housed in the studio building where the CAP studios are. Next slide. This is me giving a talk to the students, and I'm just taking you through all these kind of like little moments that happened rather than kind of take you through my practice or anything. So these are all the students of CAP who were patient enough to hear me talk about my work. And here is me looking very pleased with myself. Next slide. This is on the, what is this? Left. On the left side we have still from the library. There was a little display that I loved. And then I was sitting and kind of scribbling away in my diary and making kind of just a chart of like things I was thinking about and what I would begin my work out. So as Michael said, I was given quite a free hand. So I could do whatever I wanted. I could choose to just have sat in the library and do research, but it was entirely up to me, which is, just the best possible kind of residency that one can have, because I could choose which studio I would work with, and the RCA has facilities for everything. Once I figured that, I kind of sat down and tried to think about which studio facility, which workshop facilities I would use. And I kind of was leaning towards the photography workshop, so I went there. Next slide. At the same time, I was doing what I do here as well, which is collecting objects and photographs in and around London, because part of the residency was also to be in a place away and also experience the exhibitions and things that happen in the city of London to get an idea of what was happening. So some books I picked up from old bookshops, photographs that I sourced from eBay. All of this was coming together in some kind of work which was still kind of in my mind, but just beginning from a place of being away. What does it mean to be away? What does it mean to kind of root yourself? What do you call home? All those kind of thoughts is what I was toying with. I had carried with me my grandmother's notebooks, and I have many of these notebooks which are full of lists and lists of like groceries, and there's basically like vegetables and oil and powder and all these kind of things. And I have many books of these things, and I carried these with me because I wanted to have a link to the work that I am doing for the last decade or so, which is with my family archives. So these kind of form the backdrop to the photographic work I built. We can go to the next slide. which I did in the dark room. So on your left, this is the dark room in the RCA, where I sneakily shot some pictures where you're not supposed to really. And yeah, well, you know, it is a dark room. And I made these, I took these older photographs, I collaged them with letters from the pages in the diary. I managed to get printouts on transparencies during the Easter break, which was quite a feat, I thought. And then I made contact prints in the darkroom. So it was great fun. And the darkroom, as you can see, is huge. And, you know, I have my friend Srinivas in the audience, who basically has taught me everything I know about the darkroom. And, you know, I was looking at this, and we have a small darkroom in our studio in Delhi. So I was very pleased to see how other darkrooms work and the size of this, which was quite something. So some more darkroom things. And as you can see, I printed on these things. They're quite large. They're about 16 by 20. And I made about four different variations on this. That, as you can see, all of this is up in the accounts building. Next. These are some sketches that I was doing. People standing in bus stops, on the tube. You know, tickets I picked up from the ground, all of that. Here's some more of my work. So in thinking of, you know, this idea of home, rooting the idea of home in everyday things, also thinking about like ebbs and flows of human movement and allying it to currents, ocean currents, ley lines, you know, all kinds of maps. I was charting like some sort of a abstraction on a map of belonging. And I started reading about the secret rivers in London. And so I downloaded some maps, I scribbled all over them. I also did some more prints in the darkroom of my secret maps. I found those boxes in a auction house, and I bought boxes because I quite like the idea of making these memory boxes. And one of the things, so while I was in CAP, we would, you know, it was a great experience to have the students around me. They were all coming to the end of their, you know, year and in the CAP studio and working towards their degree show, which I was happy to see. And then I sort of, I also had the curating for contemporary art, and my interactions with them, I was talking about what I was doing, and by this time we had sort of figured out that an exhibition is going to happen. And, you know, they were like, okay, why don't you want to show your, you know, the source material of these notebooks? So one of the things I started doing was to use these boxes to show those notebooks and develop some kind of work around it. This is the Hockney Gallery and my wonderful map of it. We can quickly go to the next slide. This is the little corner where I shifted to. So I started making work, so I wanted to kind of be in the Battersea's campus still. So I got a little corner in the PhD section for a while, and I started completing my work, getting ready for the exhibition. This is the view from my window. This is how I destroyed a book I got, and I kind of poured ink on it to make this kind of, you know, the Rorschach ink blot test, which I then used to make an animation, which is part of my final video piece. This is the announcement for my show, and on the left we have the degree show coming up. This is us putting up the work in the Hockney Gallery. So the Hockney Gallery is based in the other campus, the Kensington campus, very old, very historic, and the Hockney Gallery has huge, like very high walls. And this we have Kyle helping me put up, and Rahul being bullied by me, because, you know, I can make work. Putting it up is something altogether different. Steve Brennan, who helped me hang this large piece. So there they are, in 2 ladders. Getting 2 ladders was quite the thing. Some more setting up. As Michael, checking in to see if everything's going on well. There's more setting up. This is how it looked. So it does have a kind of skylight on the top, so you can't control the lighting too much, but I was happy because my video pieces are often very immersive on a loop, so I was okay with it having, kind of not being extremely sharp focus. This is how the final show looked. You can go a little slower. Yeah. So there are 2 separate pictures. It's not the same. It's not the wall turning like that. Yeah. So these were the prints I made. These are the boxes. That's how it looked. Here we are with Mr. Munjal and Christoph Lindner, who is the president of the RCA, giving the opening kind of speech to the vernissage. Next. Here there is all of us looking very pleased. This is my CAP friends and I celebrating after. So part of the residency, Senior Artist Residency idea was to begin some work because, you can't finish a body of work in 3 months, and it's lovely to be in another place. And I think why do we go to residencies? We go to spark new ideas, to kind of think afresh, be inspired by what's around us. And in that sense, I couldn't have found more fertile ground than RCA, because you're surrounded and embedded in a studio full of students who are working, and there's this kind of incredible synergy and of people working around you, which is the best possible kind of impetus that an artist can hope for. Because once you become an artist on your own and you have your own studios and you're working by yourself, you don't get that kind of community which works together. So part of the idea was to take what I started over there and present a show in the Serendipity Festival in the end of the year. So that's how Field Measures is on at the Accounts Building. If you haven't seen it already, please do. And just, I showed you some slides of what it looked like in the July show at the Hockney Gallery, and it's very interesting to see how it looks in this particular venue, which is an older venue, and we took some creative decisions regarding the install. So next, please. The Accounts Building, again, if you haven't seen it, is an old accounts building with very old walls and floors which were full of file cabinets, and which Serendipity has very efficiently cleaned out and repurposed into a smashing venue for art. So when I came in on the 11th, this was the floor, this was a cupboard that I found. So there's a lot of serendipity in how this install happened as well, because we found certain things, and I'd only seen pictures. So when I actually saw the walls and the alcoves and the scale of it, we kind of made some changes, and one of them was this cupboard that I found and was able to use as part of my setup. Next. This was the wall that was there, and it had that wonderful wooden beading. I wasn't sure how the work would look with that, but it finally worked out fine. But I just wanted to show you before everything went up. Next, please. And then next to the room, there's also this little passage where it's not a very good picture, I apologize, but my cyanotypes and my weather charts. So in keeping with this idea of ebbs and flows and currents and clouds and lines and maps, basically cartographies of being in a way. So this starts from there. I mean, it doesn't start from there. You can go from the other side as well. But this is one of the rooms. Next. This is how the cupboard is looking right now. two of the boxes are sitting on in there, and with some other additional refurbishments. And if you remember that in the land map that I made with my found photographs, which is now on a bed of a cyanotyped sari, and I did this with some threads and yarn, and it kind of looks to me at least, like rivers and lines again. Next. So this is the show as it's looking now. I've added in influences and more works of things that I've been doing. So I've added in the to-do lists, so very quotidian, everyday things, alongside these kind of more abstract pieces, to just like juxtapose an idea. Whoops, I don't know the slide was like this. I don't think, this might be a mistake, but it's okay. Yes, please. So you can see the difference in how a wall or a setting makes it look, from the pristine wall of the Hockney Gallery to this very distressed kind of wall with the patchy paint. And I decided to draw some of the lines outward to take the thing out of the frame and out of the artwork, so to speak. Yeah, that's it. So hope that wasn't too boring, and I'll pass it back to Michael.
Thank you very much for that. It's really quite interesting actually to see the exhibition that you did at the Hockney Gallery in London, and then what is currently on display here. The contrast couldn't be starker in terms of our white, clinical, bright light installation, and here how it is in the Directorate of Accounts in this absolutely wonderfully immersive room, how it comes alive in a completely different way. I think let's start with the theme of contrasting your experiences coming to London, which you know obviously very well. It was not a new environment for you. I remember on the 8th of April when you came, it was a very busy day at the college because you arrived, but it was also the first day of Christoph Lindner, our new president, starting, being the boss of everyone. So there was a very tangible tension in the air.
You call it a buzz.
Yes, it was a buzz. Let's call it like that. But being thrown into this environment in London, what was your first impression being exposed to the RCA, which you knew, but it was still something that you had not experienced firsthand?
I hadn't. I was just so excited to be in a another kind of like educational, like a college experience, and just to come into this very historic place that I've heard so much about over the years, and be a part of it. And just, I came in, I met you all, and I saw the campus for the first time. And, Michael took me to both, like I started off in Kensington, I got the tour, I got some anecdotes. So very kindly, Mike, I think he spent the whole morning telling me everything about it. So I was very, very excited to be there. And I don't know, I now when I think back of it, like, what, I don't know what I was expecting, but I will say now on hindsight that it completely, exceeded my expectations of what I could do, and how I could experience the place, because I managed to not only do, and if I had a free pass to work anywhere, so I could actually go and bug the daylights out of people in workshops and say, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I did that, and it was not only like in time very, very enjoyable, but I also was I did a lot of work. So that's excellent. I think the more you enjoy yourself, you end up doing you do better work.
Yeah, there was a lot to discuss, a lot to familiarize yourself with, because obviously we create art and design work in a very regulatory heavy environment, So we have, of course, health and safety regulations. Access to workshops is controlled, not because we want to restrict access, but it's about our technicians being all highly skilled people there to enable our students to deliver astonishing work, but also make sure that no one cuts off his arm or her arm. So how was you being thrown into a completely different practice context on that side of things? Because I've seen how this, well, Chantal and I, we spent 2 days in the Directorate of Accounts, not helping setting it up, but we were observing it with great curiosity. It's a very different environment.
Of chasing the 2 remote controls.
Yes.
But no, it is regulatory. It took me a little bit of time to get used to Moodle, so, which is the sort of system that allows you. So, you know, it's everybody has a system. I mean, even this mad install, there is a system, method in the madness somewhere, and it was just different, and one had to just figure out what is the way to do this. And I completely get that as an educational establishment with so many students and so many people, you have to have a way of organizing that and managing that. And workshop access, etc. It's not, you can't just stroll into places. In an ideal world, perhaps you can, but you know, I just had to maybe just get used to the kind of thing. And I had Chantal to help me with everything. So I just like came to her and I said, I need this. And she would not only introduced me to everyone and got me access and, you know, all the rest of the CAP staff and, you know, everyone just was very open to helping in any way. Like, you know, if I wanted to chat, if I wanted to find out how to get something done, I mean, also things like, you know, what's going on. You know, the CAP students had a couple of shows and they had a couple of things happening at the time. So, you know, I was always included in that. So I felt very much part of things. So that really helped to just like these things.
Chantal, would you like to talk maybe about the context that you created for Sukanya?
Yeah, I will. And just, I mean, I will say, maybe just going back to your previous point, and we were having a little conversation outside, and you were saying, we were talking about that first day moment, and you were saying, Sukanya, that, you know, you came, I think, were you asked? Like, what are you going to be doing? And
what do you expect, actually? And at which point I was a bit flummoxed because I didn't know what to say. And I said something stupid like, I don't know.
But I love that. I love that as a response, I don't know. And I think that that was also our response to your residency, in that it was unscripted. And I think there's something really important in the openness of that exchange, and also how it creates this porosity between the kind of academic and professional networks, because there is something quite special about this being the Senior Artist Fellowship, in that it's bringing somebody in with that professional practice, with that experience, into the art school. And I think it's, like you were saying before, it's a kind of mutually beneficial experience. So it was really special. But I think it's important that it wasn't scripted, that we didn't have a set of, well, this is what you'll be doing today and you'll be doing this, and that we really learned off each other. But really at the heart, I would say, of the residency was making. And you are a very studio-based artist, so that worked out very well. That was my comment. Thank you.
No, it's. I saw the picture of the studio space, and I thought, for people who don't know the studio building on our campus, it looks like we locked her up in a 1x1 square meter cupboard, a wooden plank,
Sorry,
and that
I
is
didn't have a
mildly no. But it is mildly at odds with the fact that this building is a brand new state-of-the-art facility that was designed by Herzog and de Meuron, the Swiss architects who did the Tate Modern and the Beijing Olympic Stadium. It's a £135 million building, partly financed by Her Majesty's, what was then Her Majesty's Treasury, no longer. So we usually lock up our residents in the cupboard. So in terms of working with students in CAP, because CAP is an absolute multidisciplinary context, it really pushes the envelope of artistic practice, performance, disciplinarity. For both of you, and then I come to Ken as the guardian of that area, How did the student collaboration, how was it structured? How did you experience that, Sukanya?
How the students were structured?
Yeah.
Or, like,
No, how did you experience interacting with other students? You give artist talks.
Yeah, I did that. I did a couple of artist talks. So one was at CAP. I went to a White City, whereas I was invited to come and give a talk there. So I interacted with some of the students there. And in CAP, basically, they were my neighbors. There was initially Shruti was my kind of go-to guide. Where's the water tap? Where's the everything? All of that. Everybody was incredibly welcoming and open, and I loved watching everyone and seeing the individual practices, because there's a studio, but people do work elsewhere. And one of the really things I loved seeing was the degree show coming up, because one fine day you kind of clear out the studios and these incredible things come up, and you finally also get to see. I mean, you talk to people, you talk to the students, you understand what they've been doing, there's conversations, but then you see the actual thing that they have worked on. And I was very impressed by all the CAP students, and I'm not biased at all. CAP was the best student in the thing. But yeah, it was wonderful to just have that kind of ease of communication and going back and forth and seeing things.
So we structured that residency in 2 phases. The first phase of the 3 months was 2 months long, where you were embedded with CAP, Contemporary Art Practice, and then for the final month, we embedded Sukanya with our Curating Contemporary Art program. So there's a separate master's program led by Professor Victoria Walsh, who cannot unfortunately be with us today, but who is a brilliant curator, world-renowned, running a fantastic program, and where basically you were given the preparation tools, the thinking, the enabling of preparing that exhibition. So I would not like Victoria's contribution to this be unheard of. In terms of, that sounds terrible, kind of a pedagogical responsibility of us as a university to a senior artist coming to us. Chantal, can you talk a little bit about if you had kind of a pedagogical thinking, a methodological approach to how you thought we can host the first Indian artist in 183 years? We should not dwell on this. It's kind of colonialistically rather embarrassing, but we package it as a pioneering act. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, but also the first residency, that
Yes.
I'm aware of, that we have done at the Royal College of Art, where an
That is
artist, a professional artist, has been embedded within the studio. So, we've been joking about the Sukanya of many firsts, but that really was a first for us. Serendipity have been absolutely amazing throughout, and very collaborative as a partner, and of course, joined with us as we were part of the shortlisting process for who was going to be the selected candidate. And looking at Sukanya's work, I think we've already touched on the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary nature of the work, which is a really fantastic fit in CAP. But also, as we heard from her artist talk, the focus on narrative, the archive, personal histories, subjectivity, the way that you've spoken in previous works about traces and shadows, and we can see that in the mapping of the work that's in the exhibition. All of that really does strike a chord with the work that was being made in the CAP studios at that time. So we were really fortunate to know, contemporary art practice, any art school potentially, but it really is the people who make it in a given year, and that changes every year. And we're very responsive in the School of Arts and Humanities to the people who make up a given year. So in that sense, and in a pedagogical sense, we don't have a set curriculum. It would be impossible for us to. We have to adapt and we have to change to the people who make up our student body and staff body of a given year, but also to what's happening in the world. So to welcome in an artist like Sukanya was absolutely sensational, but we did do it in conversation. So in terms of the contributions to teaching, we secretly did cross our fingers and hope that you would agree to do an artist talk very early on, because it's so important to be able to share your story and your material practice with the artists. But I think the other thing is that we didn't set you up in this kind of discrete spot in the studios. You really were inside the maze that is CAP, and as Michael was suggesting, it's a really interesting space. It's only very recently built, this building, where the CAP students are. It was kind of custom built for those students, and it's a flexible space that's used for making and for studios, but also designed for exhibition. And I love hearing the way that you describe your kind of experience of watching the show become and also being part of the show. So it was really fantastic to have you there at that time.
So, Baz, just to bring you in, because you're very, very patiently listening here to us what we are doing, partly in your name, because I should explain that you are the co-chair of the Council of the Royal College of Art, which means that you are basically the supervisory boss of our boss. So you are the most divine level of the Royal College of Art, the leader of our supervisory board. For you, looking back at your career, looking at your relationship with Sunil Munjal, and having also seen the exhibition, having been here now, can you give some importance to how relevant these international relations, these international partnerships we are trying to build between the RCA and Serendipity are?
If you allow me to borrow your microphone.
I can, yes, indeed.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to be sitting next to you, Sukanya. It's very, very nice indeed. I went round your lovely exhibition at lunchtime today, and something very exciting happened. There was a power cut, and we were plunged into darkness. It was very exciting, but I came to the conclusion afterwards that your exhibition is better lit than in the dark. And luckily the power came back on and we enjoyed it in its full splendor. And if I may just touch on how I responded to your exhibition at RCA, I wasn't able to go to that gala opening, so I didn't get the glass of warm wine. But
I take responsibility for that. I will supply one later on.
But luckily for me, I was able to go later on, and you personally took me around the exhibition, which was a great privilege. And the way in which you use the word ephemera in your description, the way in which you source photographic material and other material from wherever you are and reinterpret it, resonated hugely with me, because you had a photograph of a terrible seaside resort in the United Kingdom on the east coast in Yorkshire called Filey. Unbelievably, you can imagine you go to Goa for your holidays, 32 degrees and beautiful beaches. People go to Filey, they put on overcoats and hats and eat ice cream in the pouring rain. And it's exactly where my wife was sent for her childhood holidays. And so that resonated with me. And this is a joke, but it's a serious point, because you see these images and you interpret them, and then suddenly it means something to your audience. And then I go further around the exhibition, and you had sourced all this interesting material about the hidden rivers of London. London being a metropolitan city, the original rivers that used to flow through the city, there's one called the Wandle, another called the Westbourne, another called the Fleet. They're all underground now. And they were put underground by my great-great-grandfather, who was a Victorian engineer who created London's first metropolitan sewage system, cured the city of cholera. I promise not to talk about sewage anymore, it's all right. But the point is that there was, in a sort of sideways reference to my own family history in London. So there are all these depths, resonances and depths in your work, because it's accidental in one way, but not accidental in another, because if you source these interesting materials wherever you are and work them up and reinterpret them, for the people going round, there are going to be these resonances. So that's fantastic. Now, I know I didn't answer your question, but I can't remember what it was, Michael.
No, I wanted to talk about your friendship with Sunil Munjal, and the importance of that for the Royal College of Art and the program that we are jointly developing.
Well, I'm completely in awe, because I've known Sunil now for 4 or 5 years, and we've often had lunch together and talked about collaborations and contacts that he wanted to meet and people I could introduce him to that would assist him. But he'd always talked about the Serendipity Arts, but of course I'd never come. So it's mind-boggling, the number of venues, the range of work, the sheer power of the placemaking, what this does for this part of Goa, and the identity of it, but the work is drawn right across the continent and from across the world as well. And of course that means a lot to us at the Royal College of Art, because as Ken said earlier, we have 80 nationalities there, and the exciting thing about that is that the next generation of great art and design talent is all working together across boundaries, across languages, across cultures, and creating the work. Sometimes it's just to give us pleasure, and sometimes it's going to be design work that will create the video games and the automobiles of the future. All of those things. So that's very exciting. And I'm very excited that Sunil Munjal and his colleagues, one of whom I can see in the front row over there, bowing to us at this very moment, and others, that Sunil is going to assist colleagues we have here from Birmingham, which is, as you know, a major British city with a fantastic mix of cultures and ethnicities, to do a Serendipity Arts Festival there, starting slowly in 25 and then majorly in 26. So this means a lot to us. Thank you.
That brings us to the point of continuation, because first of all, an immense gratitude for Smriti, Priyanka, Nandita, Minal here. Without your hard work and receiving thousands of emails all the time, being carbon copied into absolutely everything, making everything possible that we wish and request for Sukanya's work to given the prominence. Without all of you, that would not be possible. That should not be stressed enough. It's absolutely critical. We are really honored that the feedback from you was that this was a success, that this is something that we would like to continue doing, that there will be an annual approach to the Senior Artist Residency program, that from this year onwards it shall happen every year. And later on, we will be able to reveal the next artist in resident for us as well, exclusively. I think we're unofficial here, but there's kind of a leak. The point is, as we continue doing this, not putting you in the spot, Sukanya, but in terms of lessons learned, how we can make the experience for the next artist resident even more welcoming, impactful. Put us on the spot. Put me on the spot. Don't put Ken or Chantal on the spot, because they worked. I'm just sitting here and blabbling.
No,
but
personally, I think you should get me in every day,
every
year, and I'll help them.
Okay. Well, we would be delighted. Yes. Exactly. Permanent residence. Yeah, full time.
I'll be the residency handler.
Well, I'm one step away of trying to apply for a job here, and I just stay here and help you here.
I don't know answer to that. I mean, how can you make it better? At all your thousands of emails and behind the scene work, I'm very privileged because, I just showed up, did my work, waltzed around, saw things, made some work and came back. But, there's this bed on which I lie, which other people have enabled. And I think it was all very efficiently done. We have there's the getting there business, which I don't think anyone can do anything about. There is immigration and visas, which, unless something radically changes, is going to remain the same. I don't know, I'm privileged that I have been to London before I knew the city. So if someone should come who is coming for the first time, it'll be a very different experience, I feel. Like, there's negotiating the public transport, just figuring out the ways in which things work. Getting familiar with the city is and will be, I assume, part of the residency, and something that I think you were going to look forward to, and then you realize that I am quite happy to find my way around London. But yeah, that would be quite the thing. But as far as the college goes, as long as you have some wonderful people around to point you in the right direction, it should be quite easy to do. We did discuss a little bit about the timing of it.
Yeah.
Because you already know you have things in place, you know when your holidays are going to be, when you have your breaks, what the yearly calendar is already. So it should be, it would be just convenient to do it at a time where somebody can make maximum use of the places, and it's not, workshops are not overburdened and there's no place for, no time.
Yeah, it was interesting that we faced a mild challenge. We are all quite political in the RCA, obviously, because art, production, creativity is a political act in itself. And I had sleepless nights about immigration regulations and visa applications. That was surprisingly complex. As someone who is a foreigner in the UK as well, as after Brexit, very much so.
No,
and
not any longer. 25 years?
Well, I spent a large sum to obtain a British passport. I received a very interesting treatment from immigration authorities, which I thought, as a white European man, would deprive me of my privilege enormously. It was quite eye-opening how to be on the receiving end of a system, and I would not wish to experience how that feels if you're not white, if you are of a different color. That was quite frightening, and for someone who is from Germany and lived through from family experience to the horrors of the 20th century, my parents were shocked about that. But let's not dwell on this. It's about visa applications that caused a change in the timing that Shmirti and Priyanka and myself had planned, and we were able to start it quite late. The residency, you came to us in April, on a seminal day in the college's history in terms of leadership, and that was just you arriving, and it carried into a preserved time that we have for our graduates, because we have a graduate show which is over 6 weeks, actually now over 2 months because we changed it, and that cut into studio availability, because the studios that the students have, they get completely dismantled when they finish the work. It is created into a gigantic open space, and every student gets an exhibition space there, which is hard fought over between the schools. There's blood on the wall between the deans to get the best space for the students. And that obviously meant that we had to move you out of that, because the student had priority of display and you were given a different space in the creating context. So I can say that we have already addressed this, and the next resident will start at an earlier time. We are well ahead of visa regulations and applications, and the High Commission has been extremely helpful, I would like to say, in supporting us on this occasion. So I think we will be able to address this very effortlessly. In terms of pedagogy again and the academic context, Ken, now, I mean, it's funny that you both were in the operational side of this program, and as destiny is, you both have also been promoted since then to more leadership roles. So looking back at your operational experience of working with Sukanya, any input?
I think one thing that we could think about for next year with the artists to join us is the balance between the resident making their own work, which we want them to do. I mean, we want the artist to be able to make art and take their work in a different direction. Drawing from the London context, that's primary in the whole operation. But we want it to be a reciprocal arrangement also. So we want to build in moments, as you saw from Sukanya's presentation, where the artist shares their experience of where they've come from through the work. Because unlike some artist residencies where the artists are indeed imprisoned in a small space, it's like a hotel arrangement. You might have a 2-minute chat with somebody in the lift, hotel style. We definitely didn't want to establish a residency hotel style. We wanted, and we want the artist to interact with the students, because that's what being international is all about. It's a two-way street. So we want to be careful because we don't want to burden the artist with work for us, as it were. But we can think about the opportunities for the artist next year to interact with the students adjacent to the studio space you're in, but also perhaps college-wide, because it's a fantastic story that Sukanya brought to the RCA. It was wonderful for the other CAT students to hear about it, because they're hearing about a different part of the world that they don't know. I mean, this is the purpose of art. I mean, it's about that type of exchange. I mean, that's meaningful. So perhaps we could think about just keying up that dimension of the residence arrangements for next year.
So we were given an incredibly long period of time to be in this room, twice of what would normally in an academic context in the UK be given. I would like to not stretch that time to the maximum, but I would like to give the opportunity to the audience to actually ask questions. If there's any questions to either Sukanya, to Chantal or Ken, to Baz or myself, I'm happy to becoming a running microphone porter and take any questions from the audience's side.
I should start, right? Congratulations, Sukanya, and the RCA team. But my question is for Baz.
Oh my God.
So how did you feel when the power cut happened, and how was the coffee?
Oh, how did I feel? Yes.
When the power cut happened,
You know,
have you experienced that before?
You know, when you say how did I feel, you're reminding me of something, because I was trained as a BBC journalist in my first job, and then I made BBC documentaries. This was in the last century, as you can tell by looking at my face. And we were taught when we made documentaries to get people's emotions, you should always say, how did you feel, right? So you used to have to say things like, how did you feel when your house fell down? Or how did you feel when your grandmother fell off the boat? Or whatever it happens to be. And the art of it was to edit out the question, because if the documentary went out with you asking a damn full question like that, I mean, my parents heard a documentary I made where I left the question in. They said, how could you ask that stupid question? What is the BBC teaching? I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question, am I? How did I feel? How did I feel when it went dark? I felt, to begin with, fantastically insecure. But then I saw you and Smriti, and I could see that you were in full charge. And I knew you were in full charge by the look of panic on your face. But it was an interesting story because it was one of the only venues without a generator, and the reason it didn't have a generator was because you wanted to be more environmentally sound if you could, and you were simply relying on the mains, and there was a short interruption in the mains, and you clearly controlled the entire power grid of India because you got it back on again. So I thought you were a powerful man, and I learnt you were. No, but I do think the exhibition was better lit than in the dark, as I said earlier. But it had a new, because you had to, in the dark you had to feel your way around it. So it was what we used to call sensorama. It was a sensorama. So you could think of that another time. Yeah. Was that sufficiently fatuous an answer for you?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, the moderated panel, and thank you, Sukanya, for the presentation. I guess I had one question for you. You intimated throughout your presentation that there was, and it's been mentioned by various members here, that there was an interdisciplinarity to the context in which you were put. I wanted you to maybe share with us a few specific ways in which that interdepartmentalism in the Royal College of Art may have affected your work in not necessarily a specific way, but maybe in your thought process a little bit. And I was also keen to hear from everyone from the Royal College. I mean, again, this has been talked about, but there is a cartography and in one sense a demography that is being addressed now by the Royal College of Art, with Sukanya, being the first resident from this part of the world. But looking at that productively, how will it shift, in one sense, the kind of institutional I wouldn't like to say commitment, but direction for the RCA in one sense or another. I mean, and this might range from a methodology or an approach, but what is a little further reflection there also would be interesting to have.
Chantal, Ken, would you like to take? And you, to this side. Yeah.
I don't think you need to hear how I work. I will let Chantal, because Rahab has all this like interdisciplinarity of things and all. Like I think Chantal will do a better job. When I went there, I didn't, and encountered CAP. It was wonderful because I felt like I was, I am constantly trying to explain my work. If you tell anyone I'm an artist, they instantly say, what kind? And what kind of work do you do? And I'm instantly stumped because what should I say? And I end up being very garbled and saying, oh, I do a bit of this and a bit of that, and which is what I do. And it's sometimes quite tough to say. I mean, I want to say I'm a lawyer. Nobody would ask me any further questions.
What kind of lawyer?
Yeah, like that. But because I really like my whether it's photography, moving image, animation, I kind of quite organically flit from one to another, and it kind of in my head somewhere makes sense. And sometimes I do worry that I don't know what I'm doing. And then it was intensely exciting to see a place like the Contemporary Art Practice Studio, which is entirely about that, about people working across things and mediums and thinking through all kinds of media and practices. And the other thing that, which I always say is that, we don't talk, again, as artists practicing with studios and not necessarily being in an environment, we don't talk about our work enough. We don't discuss it enough. So there's a whole aspect of that where you're, talking, like learning and being there and, kind of thinking things through. And just, also seeing all the workshops and possibilities is very exciting because, as you know me quite well, I look at everything and I'm like, oh, I'd like to do that also. And then I like to do that. Then, of course, there's a bit of practical kind of editing that you have to do. But I don't know if that answers your question. But
Not exactly, but only because my question was how did the space at the RCA, those dialogues, those conversations that you might have had, in your mind, in your practice, in the process, is there a shift you feel through the short residency? I mean, maybe it's too much to lay on the residency.
It's not exactly a shift, but it is a reaffirmation of the way I work. I'm relieved to find I'm not batshit crazy. Other people also work this way.
Okay.
I thought we were live streaming it.
Oh, dear.
Your mother wants a word.
I was just going to say a couple of things because you raised quite a profound question, I think, in a very subtle way, about commitment to diversity, pure and simple. So, this is a commitment of a kind in front of your very eyes. We are delighted to be here. It's not just a residency founded on email exchanges. So, we want to continue with the foundation and do great things. But I mentioned at the start of the session that we have 80 plus nationalities in any year in the RCA. And it's important that we don't get complacent with that, because it would be a sheer act of arrogance to think all we need to do is switch the lights on, open the doors, and they will come. Kevin Costner style, Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. So the commitment is first and foremost to be not complacent about that rich range of cultural inputs in London. And one way to be not complacent about that is to go out and about in the world and have conversations because it is ultimately about people. You know, it's not really about those rankings. It's about people to people. And I'm saying it in this way because I'm hoping that to the folks in the room, that's a little bit similar to the way that Mr. Munjal talks about the festival. You know, it is about people and being generous and being open and being serendipitous, open to the possibilities of new meetings. So we are committed to making sure that that list of 80 becomes a list of 100, and that is about people to people and making commitments in a human way. So thanks for asking that, but it's something we do. We want to be committed to it.
And maybe just to add to those numbers, so last year in Contemporary Art Practice, there were, I think, 32 different countries represented amongst the student cohort. And I think it links to your question around multidisciplinary and what I was hinting at before about the kinds of artists who might be attracted to a program like that. Because am I echoing? Because it doesn't follow that, I was specifically referencing to the weight of the particular histories and trajectories of mediums, and people come to us who don't want to identify like that, who want to be a bit more fluid, and it's something we think about across all aspects. So, who are our speakers? Who are the invited artists coming in to speak to our students? What kind of curriculum are we building in terms of reading lists, and who are the voices represented? It's something we constantly have to think and rethink. So it's a really fantastic question, I think, and it's real honoured to have Sukanya join us.
There's an interesting point about that as well, how we named the residency scheme. It's a Senior Artist in Residence. And while we were developing this, we were actually discovering that senior had different meanings here and on our side. Because for the Serendipity Arts Foundation, senior meant to give people of a higher age group opportunities that they would normally not. I tried, I all night I thought, how can I phrase this without you reacting like that? We have now for the past 48 hours discussed ageism, age, how old we are, how young we feel. Please let me off the hook. It's a Senior Artist in Residence scheme, and for the Serendipity Arts Foundation, it is about giving senior artists, in the sense of age, opportunities to be able to apply for residencies, which they would normally not be able. A lot of opportunities are given to younger artists below the age of 30, where a plethora of opportunities are given. Just, the usual 30 under 30 meme that now defines, global leaders here and young global leaders there, and you need to be 18 and have changed the world already before you were born. On our side, however, we have a very age agnostic angle to this, because we don't look at young or old artists, senior or junior artists. We look at talent in its raw form. We look at emerging talent, and that can be someone who comes to us to study who is 20 or 18. It can be someone who is 55. So that was an interesting tension field, actually, when we developed this, that we have completely slightly tensioned views on that, but it helped our own internal discourse about age opportunities. About age opportunities, it sounds a bit, I know. About opportunities given to students, and I think we embraced the concept that Serendipity proposed to us, because we understood that the conditions here in India, in all its federal states, in all its languages and diversity, which is so immense that sometimes you have to wonder whether the label of India actually as a nation state works as such in a positive way. We have embraced that, and I think that is very important, because it's about giving opportunities to people from here to come to us. And it's not our own perspective and angle on how you should think about age and adopt our, progressive, agnostic view, because that in itself, our progressiveness there can very easily become a pseudo-colonialist or neo-colonialist angle itself. So I think that was an really interesting field for us to discuss. I'm mindful of time, and I think because we are talking about age, it would be good to maybe announce the next Senior Artist in Residence that is going to join us next year, unless there are any other questions in the auditorium that anyone would like to ask. I have another one. Okay, yeah, oh, apologies. Okay.
I suppose my next question is with respect to reception and audience and your being here. And it has to do with, I guess, seeing different publics exposed to maybe Sukanya's work, of course, here, but I guess also your sense of artists who are coming out of the RCA when they travel outside the UK, when the works travel outside the UK, and you engage with different publics. Can you share a little bit of that experience? Of course, my sort of angle is towards the global south. It is towards forming new sort of communities. And also, I think that's important because Sukanya's, I mean, if I may say so, but the way in which when I first came upon Sukanya's work was very much in the sense of a small commune of artists. It was a group of artists who were committed to a space. And so much of that earlier work was through showing, through common group shows emerging from studio practices. That writ large now onto a big institution like the RCA, sharing its pedagogic engagement with new publics. How is that experience for you? I mean, not apart from what Minal mentioned earlier, would that kind of shift a pedagogic structure? Because after all, so much of a focus in the last 20, 30 years has been about how to engage with new publics, new audiences, and so on and so forth. That's just something that struck me.
Thank you for the excellent questions. I think the RCA is an amazing place. We have amazing studios, and we have amazing staff, and we have amazing technicians. But the best thing about being at the RCA are the people that you meet and your fellow students. And I kind of feel like I should be handing over to Shruti to answer this, but I'm not going to put you on the spot. But every RCA student has an email address that finishes at network@rca.ac.uk, and you get that address for life. And there's something about the network that is so important. So we've talked a little bit about the degree show, the summer show that happens, which is a really important moment, particularly for students in our school, the School of Arts and Humanities. It's a moment of recognition. But throughout the year, there are moments of making public and experimenting. And what happens in those moments leads often to future collaborations, to collectives which are formed. We've had Contemporary Art Practice is a fairly new program at the Royal College. It's when I say new, it's almost 10 years old, but that is quite new compared to the more historic programs, painting, sculpture, etc. Incredible amount of really fantastic, diasporas now came out of the RCA a couple of years ago, and I know that Shruti is part of a collective that was formed last year in CAP as well, and I suppose what we try and do is we create platforms onto which artists can then kind of almost take the reins. So if I talk about the CAP program specifically, in the second term, we do something called the CAP Festival. And a little bit like Sukanya's residency, we have no idea what it's going to be like in a given year. We know it's going to involve external partners and collaborators. We know it's going to involve some form of making public, whether that's a radio show. So we collaborate with Montes Press Radio, who are based in Hamburg, London, and New York. And we do quite performative radio broadcast. We've collaborated with Tate Modern. So this year we combined the two collaborators. Last year in Shruti's year, we combined the two collaborators, and you saw the exhibition, you and Rahul. So it was the first time that Tate Modern had ever invited an art school or university to collaborate with them on Tate Modern Late events. And it's a really interesting event, Tate Modern Lates. You might have been to similar things, if not one. But the whole idea of Tate Modern Lates is to open up the museum to the public, to people who may not normally come. And it was really trusting of them to give us a really generous amount of space. they don't like the word to take over, to activate as a program. And so we had, performances, we had video screenings, all of the wonderful things that happen in CAP Studios, but basically going live. But those moments are really important. So they're not kind of prefabbed. They happen. They're live. But what they lead to afterwards is the really interesting thing to follow. And I think I think that is one of the. I always think that's one of the best things about being at the RCA. It's the conversations in the corridors. It's why those studio spaces are so important, because we do have absolutely amazing staff. The staff in the Contemporary Art Practice program are all phenomenal artists, but it's the in between moments, and that's why it was really important that Sukanya was there, next to the fellow CAP artists to have those conversations. And I suppose it's thinking about a kind of horizontality too, isn't it, in terms of pedagogy, but also in terms of conversation.
Another question? Okay. Yes, I know, and I would like to come to the announcement of the next Senior Artist in Resident, because we are delighted to say, unofficially, I think there will be a press release, and we are going to go live with something very flashy, Minal. Okay, so the official leak here. So our next artist in residence who will join us in February 2025 is Aditya Pandey. So Aditya is obviously an Indian contemporary artist, born in 1976, age. He's a graduate from the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, so it's a fantastic pedigree. He has incredible exhibition background. He has worked in various different ways of techniques, layering of surfaces, mixed approaches, mixed media, diverse range, vector drawing, digital photography, acrylic, ink, paint, and he also works with tinsel. And I think there should be more artists working with tinsel, frankly. Especially now where we sit here and coming from a very cold Europe, hearing Christmas carols in this environment is quite upsetting. So we look forward to welcoming Aditya very soon, and we hope that we will be given another 90 minutes next summer here. Thanks to the Serendipity Art Foundation. Have another conversation here. Have also Sukanya back, and then we can start creating a community of alumni from this residential scheme, and may it continue over years and years. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Sukanya, for being our guest. Thank you, everyone here.
Once again, well, thank you very nice.
You're very welcome.
Very nice.